My name is Chris Bennett. I'm a self-employed arborist in Mendocino County, and my specialty is technical climbing and hazardous removals and large tree pruning. But I've also spent a lot of time doing fuel load reduction and large area forest maintenance over the years. So just a few basic saw maintenance things that are going to come up during any work day, and you just want to be able to mind them and maintain them. This saw, we'll go over what this saw needs. The chain is dull. It's also a little bit loose, and so we'll go over how to tension the chain and clean the inside of the mechanism and make sure that it's sharp. Every chainsaw has your bar nut here. Usually there's two. The little ones sometimes just have one. And there's your tensioning screw right there. That sets the tension on the chain. And some saws have the screw as part of the body of the saw. Some saws have it as part of the cover, but it's going to be there somewhere. You'll find it. All right, but since this is loose, it's had a work day maybe just yesterday. Let's just pop it open and see how clean it is inside. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, this is a mess. So one thing you want to watch for is this section right here where the dust and oil can accumulate right in that spot, and that's also where the chain brake sits. So if you get too much crud built up in there, it can close in that space and maybe push the chain brake on around the clutch, and you'll end up getting friction and heat, and you can melt right through your cover if you're not keeping that part clean. So it can be enough to just real quick just scrape that stuff out of there. Doesn't have to look good, just be clear. And then you've got more crud build up in there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's not super neat, super clean or anything, but that's enough that the saw will run properly. All right. So when the cover goes back on, okay, so if the tensioning screw is on the cover, you have to make sure that the peg is in the hole in the bar there. See that? It sits on the peg, and that's where you tension the chain. Okay, so this one's still on there, so I'm just going to put this back on. And I need the bar to not slip off that peg when I'm putting this stuff on. Oh, okay. So this one, the chain brake has this other little hinge that needs to fit in there. It's got a little socket. Every saw is a little different. You just have to roll with it.
In terms of cleaning that out, is that like sort of a day of use thing, or how many hours would you put on it before you want to pop that and check it?
Yeah, it just kind of depends on what you've been cutting. if you're doing groundwork and you've been going all day, yeah, end of the day for sure. Or if you start finding, wow, the chain's like, this thing's having trouble cutting, or the chain kind of, when I take the throttle off, instead of zig, 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 kind of winding down, the chain kind of slams to a stop. Okay, you've probably got some buildup in there. It's worth stopping and checking it out. The other thing you can do routinely, I'll come back to this just because this is a little thing, but it's really easy to do. Like, I think somebody said that one wasn't idling so well. One thing that's easy to check is the air filter. And on this saw, it's right here. I just undo that. There's your air filter. And air filter gets covered with dust, saw can't breathe, it'll stop idling. So again, this isn't bad. But if this was covered with dust, I would just go scrape it off, tap it off. When they're really bad, you could like rub a little gasoline on there and get more of the stuff off. But if they're that bad, you should probably just replace it. But this one's okay.
Good to know.
Yeah. I almost never replace mine. I just keep cleaning them. It seems to work.
Oh, you add the gas and it gets the cut off.
I don't. Well, they'll get a little gas in them because the air fuel mixture is going through that. I don't actually like dump gas on there. I've just never. If it's really gross, yeah, maybe that would help clean it out. But I've just never found the need, really, very rarely. Okay, so back to putting the saw back together. Here's one thing to notice. This is true with pretty much every chainsaw also. All right, I've got it back together. It's not tight yet, but look at this. See how the bar's got this little up and down play here? All right, you want to make sure that when you set the tension of the chain, that the bar is in this position, is in the nose up position. Because if you don't, here, let me put a little bit on there. Because if I just tighten it sitting here, it's going to be in the nose down position. And then when I go to make my first cut, what happens? The wood's right here. And when that pressure goes in, it pushes the bar into the nose up position, and you just added slack into the chain that you just tightened, and it's already loose again. So instead, I just grab the back of the saw and I push the nose down against something when I set the tension. Then I know it'll be where I want it after I make that first cut. And then when I get it where I want it,
How do you know you got it where you want
I'll get back to that. I just want to tighten it first. So I just hold it in that position until I get the bar nuts tight. And then once they're basically tight, then I can snug it down. Okay. Yeah, how tight do I want it? Okay, that ended up being a little tight. I want to be able to pull the drivers out of the groove a little bit, but it shouldn't. You don't want the chain to hang down at all on its own. This feels a little tight. Now again, I've never used this particular saw before, so partly I need to know how tight does it want to be, and this just feels like it's a little too tight. The way I'm going to check that is to start it up. And see how it.
You hold, yeah.
Well, I see a choke here, but how do you hold? How do you set the choke so it stays?
Oh wait,
Let go of the trigger.
like that.
Okay, but that's run, right?
That's and then that stops right there. You just push it over, so that's good.
Okay, but I want that choke. So, okay, now I get it. Okay.
No, little pin in the back. Turn.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to turn towards you. If it's already towards you,
See
you
that
can
one
just...
going? Yeah.
Oh, back here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
And a little, and
And then you
Yeah,
change it
so
back
this is power. This is fuel switch, huh? That's, okay, but that's how it runs. Okay.
Yeah, flip it back towards you.
That one on the side has
Gas one, and then just let go of this, and then just rip it.
Okay, don't hold that.
Once it kicks over, then you move that.
Yeah.
Move it back down.
Okay.
And then
This now move this.
Yeah, back.
Okay.
And then
Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. I see how it kind of slams to a stop. That's too tight. That's too tight. It adds friction. The saw won't cut as well, and you'll wear your bar out real quick. Oh, I don't. Well, I mean, that is one thing.
it cuts quicker.
I mean, you can do that. That is a good thing to do with your bar. Like when you change, if you swap out a new chain, flip the bar over so that it wears evenly on both sides. So I'm just going to go back a little bit. And loosen it up. And it's like a guitar string. You don't if you got to loosen it, don't just loosen it. You got to go back past where you want and then always finish on tightening up.
Okay.
So then it's sitting where you want it.
Never played a guitar. Hey, you can play guitar too, man?
Yeah. Well,
Or any stringed instrument, you always want it when you tune it down, you go down past where you want and then come back up to it. Same with a saw chain.
Smells like Christmas.
It's something of a musical instrument, a chainsaw, depending on your taste in music. Big saw and a little saw make nice two-part harmony. Boy, that's still tight. Let's try it again now. Okay.
we're up there in the trees. When you drop it, it's not running.
So it's a little better. It still comes to a stop, but doing this kind of work, brush work, a lot of cutting at different angles, it's going to work loose pretty quick. So I'd call that good for now. It's just something to pay attention to as the day goes by. Okay, so that's opening it up, cleaning it out, putting it back together, and setting the chain tension. And this thing is definitely dull, so we could talk a little bit about sharpening in a sec. Okay, how's that so far? Anything get really missed? Or from one make to another, saws can be set up a little differently, but there's going to be, on the switch, there's going to be an off position, a run position, and a start position. The start sets the choke so that for a cold start. When it's a cold start, okay, a lot of the little saws also have a fuel bubble, and you usually don't need to push the fuel bubble unless you ran out of gas and you just refilled it, and the bubble will help you reprime the fuel lines. It's good to only use this when you have to, because it's real easy to flood the saw if you flood the motor if you push that too many times. Anyway, when it's cold start, I just got to pull it a few times until it made a little pop. I don't know if you heard that, but once it makes a little pop, then I put it into the regular run position and it should just start right up. Yeah. Now after that, I shouldn't ever need to choke it unless it sits cold for another hour for some reason, and then maybe I need to choke it again. Okay. 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 Okay, back to the sharpening then. All right.
How do you know when it's dull?
All right.
How do you know when you need to sharpen?
I'll do this for them and then I'll zoom in over here. Okay. Here's how I can tell.
Oh, bent.
The
Look at that.
yeah, the top, so these are called the bits. Where it actually cuts. The teeth are the bits.
Yeah.
And if I just like feel it, it's kind of dull. It's not really grabbing my skin at all. And the other thing I can tell if I hold it up, that the leading edge, it's supposed to be flat, and it's actually just curved a little bit. That's because all the tension running through the wood, it's just bent it over a little bit. So, okay, there's another thing I can see is a lot of you see the leading edge there.
Right up.
This one's pretty straight. That one, somebody hit something with that. You see how it's all kind of chewed up and rounded off, and usually it's one side or the other that hits something. You know, like this side isn't so bad. This side is.
That might even be from just improper sharpening or something.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that's something when you sharpen the teeth you really want to pay attention to is sharpening both sides evenly. And it's easy to be uneven because it's a different move. On the one side I'm going in, and then when I turn around to do the other side I'm pushing out. So it's a whole different muscle thing, and it's really easy to do them unevenly. And if you do that, especially if you're consistently uneven, one side's all one way and the other side's all the other way, you're not going to cut straight. And you'll cut in some kind of curve. And if you're cutting something little, you get away with it. But if you're cutting something bigger, the curve accelerates as you go through, and then all of a sudden your bar's just stuck in there. And then you need another saw to get it out.
Damn. That's why you carry two saws.
Okay, so there's two things to think about when sharpening one of these teeth. One is that leading edge that I've been calling everybody's attention to. The other is the curve, the whole cross section, right? Like it's not just this part, but that whole cylinder is your cutting surface. So I don't know if you can see this, but that whole curve inside there is getting flat. And really it should still be like a nice crescent moon, like a cross section of a cylinder going through there. So this chain needs a lot of work. So it's a good
right size.
yeah. This is 5/32, which is what all these little chains use. So when a chain needs just a little touch up, just give it a little touch up. But this one needs a lot. So what I'm going to do, I know that to get the leading edge sharp, I'm going to have to take some metal off, and it's going to come back a little bit. So because I know that's coming, I'm going to start by just getting into the curve and coming straight through it, kind of perpendicular to the bar of the saw, just to reestablish that cylinder there. And I'm going to look at it. Which one is it? No, not yet. Okay, that's a little better. Now it's more round. Then I'll go back to the leading edge and get the angle back. and I want to get it all the way sharp, but I want to do it by taking as little metal off as possible. So I'm just going to hold that. So here's the one I did. You can see how it's got a nice curve to it again, compared to like this one here that's really flat. And now the leading edge is it's straight and sticky. It's grabbing my skin a little bit.
With a little prick.
Well, no, it's not, because it's not a poke.
Just a little point.
It's just just grabs.
Yeah.
You'll feel your finger not want to move anymore.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You won't want to move anymore.
So that's the angle. So different chains come, with like different angles that are the ideal, and it's really nice. Some chains will have on each tooth, they'll have a little line there that marks the angle that you want to match. This one does not have that, so I'm just gonna eyeball it. And so there's a bunch of teeth left. I could demo another one, could give everybody a turn at sharpening a couple. Anyone who wants a closer look, come zoom in, I'll do another one.
So okay, cause I could see the difference between this one you did just right now.
Yeah,
So yeah, I could see.
It's all clean, huh?
Yeah, way better.
yeah.
But so you have to sharpen both of these sides. Is what you?
No. But you see they alternate.
They alternate, so
Yeah.
like you got to sharpen this one on this side and then this one on this side.
Right, so the way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to go through and do the one side, and then I get all the way around on the one side, and then I'll flip the saw around and do
So
the other.
is it easier to? You don't ever want to, because let me see. I've tried sharpening a couple
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
kind of just whoops, and I would just kind of like, so for these ones, like, could I just?
Yeah, you don't want to go
come
that way.
towards your way?
No, because the file cuts
The other way.
The
in
way
this
that
direction, right? It cuts on the push.
It's meant to be okay.
Yeah,
Not the
Because
pull.
the
Right.
teeth on the file are designed to
Right,
cut
right.
forward.
Okay.
right. I mean, you can feel the difference just
yeah.
doing that.
Oh,
if,
shit.
if you
Yeah.
do it backwards,
Dulling it, huh?
it's gonna be against the file.
Right.
Oh, is it a dull the file?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay.
So.
We're running out of files.
So check it out. I'll just do another. I mean, these, you can get these by the dozen, and doing this stuff. Well, you got to go through, find out how many saws you got of what size chain, right? And if you buy them by the box, they're pretty cheap. They're like $1 a piece. Cause you,
To get 'em like that on the way.
yeah, you'll go through them. That the Willits Power, they got a good shop there now.
Pretty cheap too, they're like
Yeah.
something each. Yeah.
You can get anything you need there now. That's really good. Yeah. So check it out. I'll just do the next one, and then where you can like zoom in and look at it. Right. It's really, look at the cross section. You see how flat that is?
Yeah.
So first thing I do is come in there and just gouge it out. See, I'm also twisting a little bit. You can see if you look at the grooves in the file, they spiral around the.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I give it a little twist as I go through, I'm just using the design of the file to my advantage. All right. So. Okay. Now it's a little more rounded out. Then I go back to making the angle. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to look at the angle that I just made. I'm just going to match that. Still twisting. It's slightly up, just a little bit. That's pretty close. So now you've got the curve there, and you've got that's sharp.
Which meant, okay, so in the beginning, how you were going down, you had to kind of go more straight
across.
And add it.
Yeah, I'm doing two different actions.
Yeah.
First, I'm gouging out the cylinder, and then I clean up the edge.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So straight first, and then which
Yeah.
is at an angle. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So you want to try this next one?
So, and you move with the like. The
Yeah, you got to get it. You got to get it inside there first. You actually had to. Yeah, I actually had to pop it in there. I'm not sure why, but
It's like okay.
yeah, yeah.
And this shouldn't be smaller. This is like the size. It's not like too big. Normally.
Yeah, that chain is so small. Maybe there's a smaller file, but this one's working, so we can go with it.
Okay, so this one just goes straight.
Yeah,
All right. And I can come back too like that.
yeah.
All right.
But try to also stay horizontal going through. Yeah.
Hearing that, you're like, dang, am I doing it wrong?
Well, no, you are, because see you're gouging the rough stuff out.
Yeah.
Now it's going smooth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so stop.
Okay.
Don't,
Now,
because you don't want to. Well, first take
You
it
don't-
out.
okay.
Take it out and see what you got.
and you don't want to go too much. Is the
Right.
okay.
Don't go more.
yeah.
It just
If
you just
you'll
run
drain,
out of
you'll run it out.
run out of chain. Okay, that's a lot better. Now you can see that you got that nice curve in there.
Okay, and
Now,
then
yeah,
now-
now you're working the edge. So when you not that much, just a little bit. So think of right. You're just carving this out to make it. So you're twisting. Yeah, you're coming up kind of almost like you're coming up underneath it and carving it out. Just a little bit. Yeah, with the twist. Yep. Yeah. Now, as you do it, you want to make that angle match that
This
angle.
one right here.
Yeah.
No, that guy's truck's way down there.
What you gonna do?
I gotta go get some stuff out of it.
How many strokes do you say you kind of try to shoot?
Well, it's just as many as it takes, and
Okay.
it's gonna. Some teeth are gonna take more than others because they're messed up more. So okay, so
Or you just know?
now you've got it sharp. You can feel that it's sharp.
Sometimes I use the.
Yeah.
Okay, but so you're almost there.
Okay.
But the angle
It's still
is flatter than this one. Can you see that?
Probably.
It's a small chain. It's hard to see, but you see how that's a little more square and it's a little more of a triangle. You see that?
Okay.
So without changing too much, you just want to take that. You want to change the angle, right? You don't want to take more off the nose. You want to just change
like
that
this?
angle.
Or which way? How would you say?
Yeah, exactly.
More like
Look,
that
just
way?
a little bit. I'm gonna brace the bar against the tailgate.
Okay. I was gonna say. Yeah,
So I can push
moving
in
around.
this way,
All right.
and that's when I'd normally wear a glove, because then
So
if I
there's-
slip out,
Yeah. You can throw that down.
that's all right. That's all right. You see, I'm just taking that corner back just a little bit.
Oh, okay, because you were pressing
Yeah.
more on this side
Yeah.
rather than the
Yeah.
the tip, like you just said. Okay.
And see, I'm changing the angle already. See, just a little bit.
Perfect. Okay.
Just a
tip
little
this
bit.
back
Yeah.
side. All
Yeah.
right.
So you got it all carved out. You got it nice and sharp, and then that last bit is just that little fine tune, just a couple strokes, and
Heck yeah.
boom, you got it.
Dang, that helped me out a lot. I'd be hesitant to sharpen the saws because I'm like, shoot, I don't want to mess it
Okay.
up. I'm gonna be running
Okay.
through all these chains.
Okay, well, you're feeling good. Do the next one now, because you're feeling good.
Take over, man.
All right, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. So that's, you pulled it back a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so right here. Wait, but that's some of
That's the other side.
So right here.
Yeah, that's the one. Pop it in there, though.
Right.
Yeah, only take off as much metal as you have
But so
to.
would you say that these are kind of?
I'd say they're good.
Damn, I'm starting to. recognize
You're on
more
it.
of those, so how you can see.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on it.
And so now this one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Pop it
With a
in there.
little tiny hair.
yeah.
That inside here. It
Anything
bother me.
meaningfully different
And
that
the
we
little
should talk
watts,
about
right?
with pole saws?
Oh, yeah, you gotta clean them out every now and
You're making a cut, all that level of intro. Just
Back up to
we
where
could
those-
go back to the stubs there. And
Okay.
gas-powered saws have two compartments. One is for the fuel mix, and the other is for the bar oil. The bar oil
We got bar oil.
is just what comes in a jug that's bar oil. You can't, whenever you refill the gas, you have to refill the bar oil. The bar oil lubricates the bar and chain, and your saw will not cut if it is dry. And you wear out the components really quickly too. So bar oil's right there, and the fuel oil mix is right there. The fuel, any new saws require ethanol-free gasoline, which is more expensive, but your saw will last longer, and everything is the same 50-to-1 mix with the two-cycle oil in it these days. So it's real easy. You can buy little 6-packs of two-cycle mix. So these are pre-measured. One of these goes in 1 gallon of gasoline, so you don't have to think about it. Just dump it in, and it's going to be mixed properly. Fortunately, it's called a bar wrench or a scrench because it's a screwdriver and a wrench, and yeah, those are the two things you need. I don't know if I can do this in a video, but the other thing that you may need to adjust is the idle. You've got 2 idle screws here. You've got the high and the low, and the low screw sets your idle. Like if you can't idle, the saw runs fine, but it won't idle by itself. You probably need to adjust the low end screw, increase it a little bit, and then you'll get a better idle. If your top end just doesn't have the RPMs that you want, you might want to increase the high end screw. But for that, you need a, oh, well, this one isn't so bad. You can actually see. Mine are very difficult to get the screw in there and even know, the screwdriver in there and even know that you're doing something. 2 screws are in there. You need a small flathead screwdriver. You just reach in there and you can adjust them a little bit. This saw was running nicely, so I don't want to mess with it. But that's what that's about.
And all saws have that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
But some of them, you have to find them. Like some of them are on the bottom, and you got to get way in there.
We've
It's
had that issue where sometimes it would if we hold it down and we just get to cutting, it'll stay
So, like,
on,
right here, this
but
is-
it won't idle.
yeah. But you see how those are really deep,
Yeah.
and so you just like even knowing whether or not you're hitting the screw can be really,
Wow.
yeah.
You can
It's
take that cover off there and get in there.
Is that what this is?
yeah, it should just pop off. Yeah, it's a little better. No,
Oh, and this is that filter, huh?
but at least you can see. Yeah, that's the air filter, and that one looks pretty clean. That one's all right. But I don't see. Yeah, see, there's dust in there, but yeah, now I can see. I mean, my thing's climbing,
Yeah.
right? So for a climbing saw, I want the top handle because it's balanced, and I
Okay.
can cut one-handed. Because that, I'm out here, right?
Yeah. In
Same
comparison to that one,
same with this. This one's a lot lighter,
Yeah.
but this one's got a lot more power. Sometimes I gotta make big cuts way up a
Yeah,
tree.
okay.
But for any homesteader, fire control, brush control around the house, personally, if you're only going to buy one saw, get a top handle, because most of what you're doing is going to be small, and it's so much nicer to be able to work with one hand, because you can grab the brush, you can cut pieces, and it's not heavy, and it's just safe, and you're not always having to set the saw down, move things. You can really just, I mean, you can still use it two-handed, which you should do. It's easier on the body whenever you can, but it's just nice to be able to just grab brush and yeah. One thing I really make a habit to do, whether it's foam plugs or earmuffs, I just use them because I really like my hearing, and there's a lot of old timers who work around chippers and big saws all the time, and they never use hearing protection. And when they say hey, they come, hey, how you doing? Yeah. So it's worth doing, because don't think of it as something you're going to do a lot of, not just toughing it out for a day. Okay, so with a top handle saw, it's really easy to, and it's kind of the only way to do it, is to hold the saw up when you start it, and think of it as much as you're pulling the cord, you're pushing the saw away. It's the chain brake. Chain brakes can be really sensitive. The main idea of the chain brake is if something hits, okay, especially working in brush piles, I'm cutting here, but I didn't notice that, the tip of my bar is hitting something else. And here's where the chain's running this way, and it can make the bar kick back in my direction. And the idea there is, if that happens, the chain brake gets activated. But if you drop the saw, it can trigger the chain brake. If you even without popping that switch, if I just hit something that makes it jump, the chain brake can engage. So if all of a sudden you're going, like you didn't notice anything weird happen, but all of a sudden your chain's sticking, just check the chain brake. You might have tripped it and not even know it. So you always pull it towards you to release it. When you cut, especially when you're working out here, there's all these different angles, and you're standing on slopes, and you're in funny positions and everything. So just always be thinking about when the saw comes through whatever you're cutting, where's it heading after that? If I'm here and I'm coming like this, and it cuts through quicker than I thought, if I'm not paying attention, it's headed right at my leg or whatever. Maybe I'm got to stand on the hillside and I'm over here, and I'm cutting right at my knee. So there's no rules. There's too many different situations to just make a simple rule about it, except, hey, watch where your saw is headed, and can I stand? I'm always asking myself, okay, can I stand in a better way? If I can cut like this, maybe that's better. I work up in trees, and I'm forced to make dangerous cuts all the time. I still just have to do it the best I can. This is better than coming through between you. Just always be thinking about it. If you can find a better place to stand, do it first. It's just nicer. So that being said, stand here. Get away from me. Come here. Forward, not. Here, if I have to make an undercut. I could do this, but that's kind of dangerous. That's better. It's just away from it.
What I saw that probably really great is when you cut it, you make angles that probably the normal people never is gonna see it. And actually, the other thing is mention about pressure. How much pressure we needed on the beginning, on the middle of the, on the end when you are cutting all the way through, and why you are making when you cutting, why you are making on the last one I saw immediately that you have the instinct right now to make this angle.
Right. Well, I mean, this was just, again, I was just making cuts so you could see, like maybe you were zoomed in on just how it was happening. To answer those, that's more like what's up here, like why cut at these angles. I know one of the going themes in this whole program is that a healthy forest is actually a fire-safe forest. So we'll work that theme some more. But I also want to point out that, like, for me personally, I like to leave things looking clean, looking nice, and that also a clean, attractive work site is also a safer work site. Like this little stump here, it's no big deal as far as the fire issue goes, but if you're busy and you're dragging a bunch of brush, this is a great thing to trip over all the time, especially when there's like 50 of them. So this is a good, okay, there's a little tree here. This was a good cut to make just because it's a nice controlled, safe cut where you can pay attention to what's coming down. But after that, it's really worth it to just take those stumps down to the ground. And I don't know how much we want to get into this, but using good body mechanics is a really good idea. A whole day of bending over and cutting like this would ruin my back. So instead, I'm just gonna get down and get in the dirt. I do a lot of cutting from my knees because I just think it's a safer, a more friendly body mechanics way to do stuff. So just right close to the ground, but I never touched the dirt. So I'm not going to dull my saw. And the cut's going, as I went through the wood, it's going away from me. And I'm in a nice stable spot here, especially on the slope. It's nice to be on your knees or down low so you don't go sliding down. Okay, as far as cutting at different angles, if I slip down the hill in the middle of my cut, that's no good. So the idea is we're gonna keep this.
You know, we don't really need to keep that.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I'm just trying to interpret. Okay, but let's say we were gonna keep this. Then, well, this is getting into the whole how and why to make cuts and all that. So we can go there.
I mean, let's sort of start simple if we can.
Yeah.
Just like, where to make cuts without damaging and how to keep them tight.
Right. Yeah, and when they're, I can't give you a rule for that, it's like when they're curved about 3 different ways, just expect that in fact, it can pinch, whichever way you start, it can pinch both ways. So, just be ready for that and watch the wood. Like, okay, I know it's going to pinch. I'm just watching for it to start. If it starts grabbing, I'm just going to get out of there before. And then try the other side. Okay. Order of things. Let's start with just leaving friendly cuts. Let's say for now we wanted to keep this, and it's a tan oak. They grow like weeds. Be really hard to actually kill it by cutting it wrong, but in general, if you want to prune a tree well, think about what gets left here. It's called a collar, and these collars are too long, like this here. It creates an opportunity for disease or whatever. It also just kind of looks like you whacked it. And if you're doing like hardening around homes, people care more about how their trees look. So instead, I would leave these collars like this. I'll just cut them and then talk about why. So you notice, like every cut I made, I had to reposition and just get good footing, and I found a way to brace myself. Any of that, it's all worth doing. So I cleaned these off, but I left still something of a collar sticking off, and the spot I chose is kind of where I can see where the wood is going to heal. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but as this cut heals, it's gonna die back into there a little bit as the tree heals itself. So I want to leave enough of a collar that dying process happens outside the main trunk. Then the rest of the tree will stay strong. Same up here, like that's plenty. And then one thing I was really careful to do, like that was probably already dead, I just took that little peg off, is to not go into the rest of the wood. You can you think, oh, I'll make it just a little tighter, and by doing so you like double the size of that cut. You just made more of a wound that the tree has to heal. This will be a really good example, and it won't matter because this is coming off. So here I'm going to clean off this collar. Okay, that's a lot cleaner, and it's not that much bigger of a cut. Now if instead I come in just a little closer, you see how much bigger that got? just a much bigger wound. So there's that's the zone that you're working on when you're deciding how deep of a cut to make. On this branch, this would still be okay, but it's just getting bigger and more for that tree to heal. So if I was going to keep this and just clean that off, I want to make a cut down here somewhere. But this little bit is heavy. Okay, you can see what happens. Just as a counter example, if I were to just cut from the top and come through, when it gets to the bottom, the weight of this is going to pull the bark and it's going to rip a little bit. And you can see that happen right here. So that makes an extra wound in the tree that the tree has to heal. Now I can see that this, we'll come back and clean this off and that'll be okay. But you want to avoid that. And it's actually really easy to avoid by just making an undercut first. And, okay, I'm demonstrating two things at once here. One is the undercut, the other is choosing the spot. This isn't that heavy, but even when they're longer, even if they're not that big, there's a lot of torque and a lot of pull, and it's really easy for that to rip. So instead of taking this off with one cut, I'm going to make two. The first one just to get the weight off. That much is enough. Okay, now with all the weight off, I can make a much more precise cut here that will just clean it off nicely. No rip. And then with this one here, if I look at where the rip stops, if I make a new collar, I can see that if I make a new collar here, I'm not cutting into the main trunk that would be left. So I'm going to do that. I just did that because it was in my way. It's worth doing. Now I can get a safer spot to cut from. When I'm cutting at a funny angle like this, I might still want to make an undercut, but it can be hard to tell at first where this top cut is going to end up. So I started my top cut so that I can see better where that's going to be. Then I'll make my undercut to match it.
So just to do like, we'll recap some. I think we should like find a place to do some fresh cuts and sort of recap the whole. Take the weight off in order. Find the right place to leave just enough collar. Step through all that. But the other thing that's important to point out here, you know, it's different depending on where you're at to some degree. But this is a major walking path for a bunch of people. So in this particular job, the leaving it pretty is more important, just because otherwise we're going to get a bunch of complaints, and it's going to be a pain in the ass. So you know, this is a
You can edit that out, right?
Time to leave those cuts as pretty as you can. To go back and once you've got the weight off, go back and do the second cut to make it clean. To take the time to take the weight off and then cut those stumps off closer. This is a good job to sort of take a little more time and make sure you're leaving the forest as pretty as you can.
Right, because the people going by, you do all this awesome work, but you leave a couple of eyesores, they won't notice all the cool stuff you did. They go, oh, those people made those, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Those people.
Those people. I mean, but that's like another topic as far as like what to take and what to leave. I was just seeing this is a good example of, hey, how do we, this one's twisty and weird. How do we do this safely?
Semi-twisty drop.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. If I do that, it's coming right at you. So you probably want to move over there or something. No, it's not going that far.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Well, it's an optical illusion because it's standing way up here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you did, that'd be nice.
It'll be right there. Where you at?
Yeah, it's gonna drop right where you're at.
It's a little bit, just real,
my
real
helmet on.
thin, real tiny on
Hey,
top
put
too.
my helmet on.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going right there.
Are you gonna cut it down so it'll drop down
Yeah. Yeah.
and not fall?
Yeah.
Yeah, cut it at an angle so it'll just
Yeah.
straight down and
Well,
just hung up the branches. The only way to get that to
yeah, so this is something you run into a lot. This little bit of a tree, but it's got a bunch of different curves in it, and it's growing up through other branches of other trees. It's really hard to predict what it's going to do. It might not come down at all, and then you got to figure out how to wrestle it down. But just in anticipation of that, I'm just going to be prepared for wherever I make the cut, that the butt of this thing could twist and swing in a lot of different directions. So here, I want to be uphill from all that. I can tell that at least it's all, whatever happens, it's going that way. So I'm just going to be on the back side of it. I just made a little bit of a notch to help it. It's going that way anyway, but it'll just make a more effective cut if I notch it. So that's a really good example of, a slightly bigger tree with slightly more twist to it and slightly more spring up above. That butt could have really kicked back at me. And something like that, I can knock it away with my arm, but something a little bit bigger, smash a toe, smash a shin, it's no fun. It's not gonna go, so I'm just gonna cut it some more.
do another cut.
Yeah, just like that, huh?
Yeah, if I had been just trying to yank that down, probably would have been really hard, but just peeling it out makes it easy. All right. Since I'm here, I'll just take these down and then we can move on.
Clean cut, clean shave.
Everything to the ground.
Yeah.
So what about this one right here that you cut? This one is dead. I think it's kind of rotten in the middle right here. This one you brought down. See it?
You mean right at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was a dead.
And so those
dead
are good
piece.
to take out because once those dry up, those are, I mean, easy to spark, right?
Yeah,
that's just a
I mean, I have.
Yeah.
Because that was like hollow. I mean,
As
that
you
was,
go through, your first priority is always going to be finding the stuff that's dead
yeah,
and
the dead
clearing
ones
it
that
out.
are dried out and
You know?
everything.
Yeah.
When you start with taking the stuff that's already dead and dried and ready to flame, and then you thin and spread from there, taking out other stuff.
I just thought that'd be good to identify for the video. You know what I mean? Because it's clearly got a, it's rotten.
Yeah.
A couple more months, you could have kicked it over.
Well, see, and that's why I was kind of like not just going, yeah. Well, it's because I'm kind of a fan of deadwood. Like when it's that dead, like there's not much fire fuel left in there, but it's habitat. A fuel removal situation, right?
I suppose technically that's true.
I mean, I would. I mean, I think that kind of defines.
It was actually around 5 months. And right now, I woke up, I think it was down like 40%.
Don't see that here. Could keep going.
We'll keep going.
But all these little furs, though, I would peel those away.
It'll be interesting to see how much Mary and Mike actually agree and don't.
Yeah.
But they've worked together a fair lot, so it's probably a... Yeah, the slope is like not fun to work on.
Yeah. I would be all over that. I'd mow it.
Look great.
Yeah,
Once you get all that out.
yeah. Not really.
That might make a good one just for dropping.
These are, I know.
Cavities. I don't know. Just their perspective, at least. It is dead.
Well, and this is all stump shoot from, that maple that was cut for whatever reason.
679
So, you know, finding what to keep of this low stuff. Like, these are good suckers because that's all dead, right? So
One right there above her, yeah.
yeah,
There is the whole tree dead.
yeah, the big thing is dead. So it's more like, instead of just cutting all this out, can we find a place to cut it back to the suckers, to tell them to go up, and then we get that stuff out of the way, and then they got somewhere to go, and then we still have maple trees, right? Rather than just going, oh well, that's more like brush, and if it was fir, I'd say yeah, let's cut it all. Well, here's one little fuel load spot that we want to clean up, and the end goal is going to be getting some of the lower downturning limbs off of this dormant oak tree. Those low limbs are ladder fuel, but before we get to that, we want to tackle the ground level stuff first. It just makes things easier to deal with and safer along the way if there's not all these trip hazards and things. So, Shmies, is this coming out?
Some of it can.
I mean, yeah, this and blackberry, everybody's favorite, I know, but well, now see, here's where you get into the human factors, right? Because there's probably a point in the year when all the people walking really love to stop and pick a blackberry or two. This tan oak was already pruned, but it's a really good candidate for removal just because it's low, it's got a funny growth pattern, it's already really rotted out, it doesn't have much of a future. It'd be better to clear the way for a healthier tree to take its place. So I'd say take this out. And yeah, once some of these big weeds are out of the way, then we can get some limbs off of the oak tree. So this will be a good little before and after in just like a few minutes. We can
We need to get a
see what the
saw to
results
get that
are.
guy down first.
Yeah.
First step.
So is this like even like the tan oak thing? Is this still me doing a demo, you think? Or is this, are we at to like crew feeling like, okay, they got some download. They want to move in there and do this.
Let's do one more demo and get in the proper cut on that one at least.
Okay.
So, and to do that, we just need to get this out of the way. Does anybody got a saw?
I mean, you know, you didn't really have to do any of it. It's just like,
Great.
it's demo principles. All right, so I'm on for this one.
Go for it.
All right.
You gotta get closer to the ground.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can still see everything. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, just a safe approach to this. These bros here are working over there. They're safe enough. They're far enough away from any chainsaw action, so I'm gonna let them do their thing. And I'm gonna take the tan oak out of the way first, just to make a easier approach to the other branch. So I could just cut this at the base and knock it down, but it'll be easier to deal with if I do it in pieces. Since I'm going to cut it up anyway, I might as well do it when it's easiest. Yes, it's always better when you can to clear the brush as you go instead of making a big pile, which then you have to pull it all apart just to move it. That's why it's nice to have many hands on deck. I'm gonna cut this guy too. Yeah. I'm going to take this one bay branch as well because it's making ladder fuel right underneath the oak. So here's that whole idea of leaving a nice cut. First I'm going to take the weight off. I'm going to go out a foot or so from the main trunk. That makes it easy to leave a clean collar once the heavy part's gone. And you know, that's good enough for a bay tree. There's a little bit of extra here, but that's okay. This little tan oak had been pruned already, but it had a funny growth pattern and it didn't have anywhere to go. So it's better to just, plus you can see it's rotted out all the way to the base. So this was a good one to just take out, leave room for stuff with a nicer growth pattern and clean up the fuel load. And the same with the bay tree. It has this branch that was curving all the way down through the oak. The rest of it can stay. It's nice and vertical. Or maybe if they come along with the pole saw, they'd take the next one off, but it's headed in a nice direction after that. Okay, that's not actually a bay tree. That's a tan oak too. I don't know what I saw that made me think that.
I think you wanted to do a cut with the pole saw too. You wanted to do.
Yeah, if like it wouldn't hurt to take this next one off.
Leave the shoot going straight up.
Yeah. I don't really want to sling the pole saw around, but like after we get this, like, well, the pole saw is, we're going to need that for these too. So when that time, yeah, you could come in and tackle those bits. Let me get this bottom oak branch first, I guess. Here we go. Okay, so this will be the same principles that I just talked about with that over here, and we'll just do it again. This has a lot of weight sticking way out there, so yeah, you got it. Yeah. Thank you. So even though the branch isn't very big, it's got a lot of torque sticking way out there, and so I don't want to make my first cut real close to the trunk because there's a good chance it's going to rip. And we want to protect the main trunk from anything. So I'll make my first cut a foot or so out from there. And this is overhead. Like if this was an OSHA site, I'd have my hard hat and probably some other rules would be in play. But I can see that this is going to drop, you know, it's going to come off of there heavy. So, oh, there's a little newt headed out there. So, Dave, what you just helped me with by pulling that one branch out there, that needed to happen before I make this cut, because watch out, there's a newt right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Whenever there's something hazardous, think about your escape route. Have at least, preferably a good 180-degree zone where you can step back from whatever's falling. So I've got that now. Just some little things I could trip over, but I'm gonna remember they're there. I'm also gonna protect some wildlife here. Sorry. There's a little red-bellied newt that I do not want to step on when I jump back from this falling branch. There we go. Okay, so again, I know this butt's gonna spring. Probably what's gonna happen is the tip's gonna come down first and there's gonna be a little spring, and so when the butt breaks free, it's gonna wanna shoot back towards the base of the tree. So I just have to be ready for that and get out of the way. Okay, that was uneventful, but we like uneventful. But knowing what to be ready for before it happens is always to your advantage. All right, now, this is really cool. There's little mushrooms growing out of the crack in this wood. And before I even start to cut, I can see there's a natural spot for where this collar is going to go. There's just kind of a natural seam in the wood here. So I'm going to start my cut where I can most easily see that and just follow the angle that's already part of the tree. Yeah. And you can see how the diameter of the cut was starting to increase, so I don't want to go in really any closer than that, but that's a good cut. Yeah, so when you come through with the pole saw, even though those branches are a lot thinner, it's also harder to make a clean cut with the pole saw. So do the same thing anyway, just knock the weight off first and then just clean up that last little peg.
I like how you pointed out earlier when you do the undercut that it doesn't need to be too much, just a little bit even does it. And when you did that, just that little sliver, I seen it drop a little bit, which means it's not gonna like kind of, when you cut it, it's gonna be easier.
Right. Yeah,
Like
get out of there before it pinches.
Sometimes I with the pole saw, when I do it, it'll bite, and like when you're up there, it's like, damn, you can't like, you know, push it over a little bit or whatever. But
Right, okay, well that's a pole saw technique issue. The thing with the pole saw that happens is because you're reaching way up, right?
Yeah.
And so you're directly under it.
yeah,
And the angle, it's always going to get you. So try, you know, the more,
you go under too with the pole saw first a little bit.
if
sometimes you start first.
if you can, it's just hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. So when you can, think of it this way: the more straight up you're reaching with the pole saw, the smaller branches you can get away with cutting. If you can use a full extension but be back at a little bit of an angle, then yeah, I would still undercut it and then come down, and then you probably avoid getting pinched. When you're right under it, it's really difficult to avoid getting pinched. That's why I say the smaller ones you'll get away with a pinch. Bigger ones, no. The other thing about being right underneath it,
Laying right on you.
it's headed right for your head. So hard hat is really a reasonable thing to do. And also why don't cut something really big that's right over your head. You know, if it's gonna, if protecting your head is gonna break your arm, probably don't cut it. Yeah,
Wise.
yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
As someone who's had to make choices like that in a moment, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about the pole saw, because that's always getting pinched. Oh man, yeah.
Terrible. I could never.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to get stuck in that situation.
We were there for just a little bit just to get some food, and I was like,
And so, what about when you can't go all the way, but you can get like a little bit of it that's hanging out?
Yeah.
Hey, if I couldn't reach that top one,
Right.
how would you say to go about that?
Then just treat treat it like the trunk, like go ahead and knock the end off, but then make a cleanup cut that's right next to the main branch.
Alright.
Yeah. 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 I bet you could get that one though.
I think I could. No, that's
That's good demo though.
Let me get this up here a little bit. That one behind you.
Yeah, this. Oh yeah. That first bottom limb. Oop, here we go.
Stay stuck under.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a good one to do it in two cuts. Do one further out first. Get the weight off and then clean it up. Oh, here's the thing.
Am I different?
Well, yeah, because you want to be like when you're lower the bar down. Yeah. Okay. Here, swing it this way so they can see. All right. Okay. Right. So this is, just pretend this is up in a tree, and you're cutting it. If you come in at this angle,
Slant.
you've got a lot longer cut to make, and it's going to be sloppier. So because you're working with a pole saw, the only way you can fix that is to move around and stand in a different spot so you can come in perpendicular
Okay.
to the. In other words, you're making the smallest cut
Rather than taking it, yeah.
rather than making this long thing. It's better for the tree, and your cut will come apart a lot cleaner.
Okay.
Those long cuts like that, they tend to twist and rip and stuff.
I think I've had experience with it, so that makes sense.
Yeah. But you found the spot. Now you got a good spot for that. Just coming in there. Yeah. Then try one more that's the beauty cut. So you picked a really good spot to cut from. Came in a little too flush, probably. Yeah.
Squared it up.
Was that a no?
Well, I see why you did that.
I seen like a caller and I just took the initiative, but I maybe should have asked first.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
That's that military fade, huh?
It's well, I'd say this, that you probably could have gotten what you wanted with one cut if the first one had come in more like, let's see, you came in from here. If you come in more like from here, you see how you probably could have gone through in
With
one
that
go.
in one.
Yeah,
All
and that would have been enough. So
Do you want to clean it up?
well, not at this point. I don't want to take any more off of it because this last cut, that's getting pretty flush into the main trunk.
inside of the
Yeah,
trunk.
so I don't want to take it down anymore.
So would you? Okay, so you said instead of having it like that, you would have came at it more. With
There's yeah, probably right there.
You could have got both of those.
Yeah, like I was saying with where to go. Oh, it was with that other tree, but there's just a natural. There's a natural seam there.
Where it would
Where
disconnect
yeah,
or
where does it?
fall-
Yeah,
fall off.
and just try to follow that.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, that looks good.
doing it that way, yeah, you're exposing a lot. I mean, it is a tan oak, so they kind of grow like weeds, and it's hard to hurt it. But
And then it'll bounce back. huh?
but just you know, you don't want to be making cuts like that all over the forest. Yeah,
Alrighty.
yeah.
I think you guys messed it up. Cut the whole thing down. You're not gonna cut that corner off?
No, it's. I don't want to take any more off it. It'll be okay like it is. It's not perfect, but
What about right here? What you thinking, Scott?
This top piece.
Right up some of these? And leave them.
Lift it up.
Good?
okay. So we found these. They're some good examples of larger things that you might want to cut because they're dead, and this is good firewood for somebody.
Right here.
All right.
You chop it up for them.
But they're also curvy and twisty and tangled in other stuff, and so they're pretty hazardous to cut down. And we're just gonna like demonstrate how to try to deal with it safely, and then we'll probably get a chance to see here's some of the weird stuff that can happen when you actually cut it down, because it's just gonna get weird in some unpredictable way. So okay. Like we've been, I'm just gonna cut up higher. It leaves this thing more freedom to fall through whatever it's tangled in. If I cut close to the ground, it's pinched at the ground, and then it has to rotate and stuff. Okay, we know that there's only one way this can go. It's headed that way, so why do I need to make a notch to tell it where to go? Well, it's not to tell it where to go, it's just, it releases the cut. It'll make the cut break away more smoothly. If I, madrone, it's really hard and brittle. If I didn't do this at all, it would totally split and rip and get all kinds of weird. If I just made a single slice, it would pretty quickly lean up against that and bind on it, and then it would still like pop when I came through the back to a certain degree. So making a notch, especially in something dead and hard, right? It's got no more flex. It's not gonna crack. It's just gonna be brittle right till the end, and then it's just gonna pop. So I want to build a release in. It's going to be more important on the bigger one over there. Okay.
I see why you did it.
Pretty mellow, but yeah, that made it.
It would have kind of just like you said, it would have leaned right against it if you did one slice.
Yeah.
Rather than how it went.
Probably would have broke too, right? You think?
Yeah.
Guys like observe the so the guy who's done this a long time. Before he did any of that, he stopped and looked all around behind him, tried to make sure because that thing
kicked
could
around a
just
little bit.
kick
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
So he made sure before he did that there was an escape route behind him in all directions, that he wasn't going to trip over something.
Yeah.
Super important.
100%.
Yeah, so let's go straight to the, so there's still a little hang up there, but you guys can deal with that. But you still got to watch it when you cut it. This one's even weirder, so let's just get right to it. No, the next dead madrone.
It's gonna come that way, so you guys gotta move.
Yeah, everybody should be up here.
Not yet.
Oh, that one's gonna come down here too. So hey, you guys gotta come down this way because it's gonna come on this side of that tree. So that branch is gonna come sliding down.
All right, so you've all spotted it already. This one's even more complicated for all those reasons. So you just need more of everything. More clearance, more of an escape route for me. And just, more ready for something unpredictable to happen. If I could do anything to avoid smashing the baby redwood there, I would, but I can't really do anything preemptive. I might miss it, I might not. So another reason I really like top handle saws and being able to cut one-handed is that I can do this. I can get back off. I don't have to be two-handed up in the business, right? Yeah, it's top handle saw. Yeah. Okay, so, and yeah, the next one. This is where I would recommend to you guys, because I like you and I want you to like stay safe and have a good life. You get to something like this, skip it. It's just, I mean, yes, I have my ways that I would approach this thing, but cutting it from the ground is, it's just sketchy. It's really hard to figure out how it's entangled with the other stuff, and as far as ladder fuel goes, if it had smaller dead stuff coming off of it that you could clean, yeah, go ahead and clean it. But cutting that from the ground, I just,
You'd have to get rid of all the other stuff.
leave it for somebody who gets paid to do the stupid stuff like me. Yeah.
How would you approach it though? If this was something you got contracted to do?
See, that next one looks like it'd probably pull through.
So it's
Don't cut it all the way, just let it ready and then just fall together.
But I mean, I'd approach it one piece at a time.
You'd have to climb it though, huh?
No, well,
You cut the bottom one.
I don't
And then just cut the
I don't-
top one and take it down.
I don't think I want to climb it.
I know, right?
It's a little too dead.
Because that oak is gonna hold it up.
Would you have to cut the one underneath it first?
I mean, it kind of looks like the next one will go and it'll just roll out. But if it hangs up and I'm not ready to cut the other stuff out that it's hung up in, now I've created some other hazard. Like now you guys don't want to work under there because you got that big hanger.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, since you're maybe coming through here, I'd leave what we've got, clean out underneath it, and then maybe think again about, all right, do we want to tackle this now?
Yeah,
You know.
you guys aren't going to tackle that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that, you know, I mean, we're going to try to clear out as much as we can. It's a fire hazard. That's not a particularly
Right.
profound fire hazard.
Well, it's not a safety issue because it's not dead. It's not hanging, ready to fall down. I mean,
Yeah. And, you know, so we're going to do as much as we can do. But, yeah, priority one, just to reemphasize, is that you guys all have, like, long, healthy lives. Able to keep using all your limbs and all. That's like,
there's a widowmaker right there, though.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. And if I make a cut, like right now it's okay, it can just, you know, but if I make a cut, now we're creating more mess. Now we got to deal with it. So I'd rather not,
do them in a wheelchair.
especially since there's all this other stuff that you guys can do.
If it's sketchy at all, just know to walk from it. And,
Alright, most definitely. Yeah, I try not to put myself in harm's way.
Especially when there's lower hanging fruit that you can just clean up today and have a productive day.
Stump we're cutting down, right?
Yeah, I would.
To the bank. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tomorrow hopefully we'll get a better saw. Someone will go and buy one.
And that's your firewood stash there.
One of those echoes, huh? Get an echo now, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you see what I can cut with that. I mean, it's not super fast, but
It's almost like a battery operated one.
you know, I can go. Oh, this has got way more power than a battery saw.
He said, let me talk about my.
Well, I got my battery saw, and I could show you the difference.
Yeah, they have the pole saws on the batteries too.
I mean, they're getting better at it all the
They're
time.
all going to be batty pretty soon. All the little gas.
They're getting ready to get rid of gas.
Yeah, they're gonna outlaw them.
Light.
True.
Is the benefit that it's light? Or
That's probably it because it's not going to run.
It's not especially light.
Yeah, you got
The battery's heavy.
Oh, I thought that was a can opener. What the hell are you doing with the can opener?
Eating pears.
It's in other words, it's not like it's not dramatically lighter. That little still that you've got, that's the light saw.
Yeah.
That thing is amazing.
Yeah, that's a little bit bigger. I mean, the blade looks like the same size, but just a little
No,
bigger
it's
right
but
here.
it's
it looks a
it's
lot
got
bigger.
way more.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's 35 cc's.
Okay, so it's got
I mean,
power,
I, you
for
know,
sure.
I got to go through oak this big sometimes when I'm 70 feet off the ground, so I can't do it with a little saw. This thing, it's a lot of work with it, but it will get through it.
It's a nice blade too.
You
You
gotta
put
keep
that
you
on?
gotta keep changing those ones though. If you're going up and climbing, you can't run it all the way down like we do the other one.
Well, I
You gotta change
I
them.
keep them sharp. I don't let them get so bad.
That's a trick, huh?
Yeah. Yeah,
well-
it's way easier to just do a little touch up more frequently.
Every day, maybe at the beginning. Or the end,
Yeah.
whatever.
Or just whenever it's needed, I can go for 2 weeks and not need to sharpen it.
Wow.
But I do one wrong move. Oh, okay, it's time.
Yeah, when you can tell different
Yeah.
of a good cut and a bad cut.
Yeah.
I see what you mean though. Like when it's not particularly sharp on one side, yeah, it will kind of pull it to where it's sharper. It'll kind of because it grabs more. I've
And
felt that,
it just
yeah.
curves.
I've felt that because it's like, whoa, I'm keeping it straight. Why is my
Yeah.
cut coming out that way?
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense if it's grabbing more on one side.
Yeah.
Get my good side.
Yeah, and you get away with it for a little while. You get away with it for a little while, a little more, and then all of a sudden, right about here.
Something around that size, you're gonna tell the difference.
Yeah.
They're showing me this big old muscle here. The stem was where the money is, not the cap itself.
Got all the flavor in the stem.
But this, this gets old when you got to reach you know.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy for the size.
Yeah.
But I guess it's got that power, so.
Yeah. You know, the trade-off is once I get it out there, it goes zing, and then I don't have to hold it no more. As opposed to being out there and trying to push it through the wood, you know. Oh yeah, that was a question that came up about pressure. I mean, I'm not sure, you know, how much do you push the saw through the wood? I mean, there's no real rule for that. I mean, partly it depends on how sharp your saw is.
Yeah, you can tell.
Well, that's another way you know your saw is getting dull, is if you're like pushing it through the wood, probably because you need to sharpen it. If it's sharp,
That might be dulling it even more too, because now it's getting more
Yeah.
pressure. This is
yeah,
dulling it.
and it puts stress on the bar. It'll start the groove, that metal. It starts to mushroom out.
Well, I've seen it to where it was kind of in, and you kind of had to like pry it apart just to get
Yeah.
the, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that happened, but
Yeah. So
right on.
another reason to keep them a little sharp all the time. Okay. Well, so I guess the way I would summarize the most important things that I talked about today is first, just everybody being safe. You know, choosing how you approach any cut that you make, to do it safely, including especially, you know, where you put your body before you make the cut. And something we didn't really, well, we showed it a little bit earlier, but when you have a crew working and everybody's got a spot, be aware of each other and maintain a good spacing in between workers so that you're not dropping little branches on somebody if they're in the middle of doing something else with a chainsaw. Could be really hazardous. After that, it's keeping the equipment well maintained, which will make work safer and will also make the cuts that you make on the trees better for the trees. And you know, that's the last part for me that's always important, is leaving the forest happy and healthy, you know, leaving it cleaned up but without making too much impact. And I think other people are going to cover this in a lot more detail. But every tree that you prune, leave it, I'll say it this way. Every tree that you prune, you're thinking about what you want to take off, and that's right. But also think about what you're leaving, and is the tree that you're leaving in a healthy growth pattern. So before you go cutting pieces off of it, have a plan for what's going to stay, and then you can leave a happy tree. We didn't have too many examples of what I was saying about, you know, what to leave, how to choose the cut and leave a good growth pattern. So yeah, that's really important. But we didn't really find any trees to demonstrate that. So maybe later in the week that'll come up again when there's other trees. Okay. Okay, this is about what happens when a chain gets thrown off a saw, which can happen a lot, especially when you're doing brushwork and making lots of different angle cuts and in a big pile of stuff. It can happen more easily. So one thing that really can lead to a chain getting thrown off is letting it get loose. This chain is way too loose. You see how it's just flopping around there? Well, again, when you're working brush all day long, your chain tends to get loose. So if I was doing this and I noticed that my chain was this bad, I would stop and tighten it. Now, we covered that part already. But if I didn't notice and I kept going, I can throw the chain off the bar and a couple things can happen. you're going to have to take the saw apart to put the chain back on. But also what can happen is if it comes off when it's under a lot of power, you'll hear this kind of grinding of metal sound, and it's because the chain is off the bar, but it's hanging loose inside where the drive sprocket is still spinning. And what it does, or can do, and usually does, is it chews up the drive links. The drivers are the part that you don't see. They're the part that is down inside the groove. And I have here a chain that has been thrown, so I can show you what happens to it. I'm not sure where the zoom is here, but you can see the normal drivers are nice and smooth, but these few they're all chewed up on the edges, and so the groove, the link is all, it's got burrs, metal burrs all over it. And so if I try to just put that back onto the saw, these drivers aren't going to fit down into the groove in the bar. So what you have to do is file them off. You can, I prefer to be at home where the shop is and just turn on the grinder and clean them off that way. But if you're out in the field, you have to do it with a file. So, yeah, it can be really hard to tell when you take the chain off what drivers might be messed up. So the first thing to do is just, not with gloves on of course, but just go along and feel. And you might go along and feel and say, well, okay, I don't feel anything. And then you go to put the chain back on and some of the links won't go in. So, okay, well, there's a spot with burrs on them. So you just have to work through it. So what I'm going to do, since all I've got is this little flat file, I'm just going to set stuff on the tailgate and just grind it down. And you really have to do it all the way. Don't worry about rounding it off a little bit, because there's still plenty of metal in there for the drive sprocket to catch. The saw will run fine. But if you leave even a little bit left over, it will still, it'll be hard to get it into the groove. And also, spurs on the metal will grind out the inside of your bar also and just wear it out. So you want to take all those burrs off. So those two. Sounds like I need a new file too. This one's getting pretty smooth. Okay, so those two look okay. Have to do both sides. Usually, probably, have to do both sides. Okay, those two are probably okay. There are probably a couple more that need it, but let's save that for putting the chain back on, and we'll see if we can find them by, do they fit in the bar. Since we didn't cover replacing the chain, let's just do that. Okay, I'm going to turn around. Ooh. Technical hazard here, I'll just put it in my pocket. All right. There we go. okay? So we were kind of here before when we were talking about just tightening the chain. There is no way to put the chain back on without taking the cover off. You just can't do it. If you catch it early on and you just have a little, sometimes you just get a little out like that, just like one link, then you can maybe cheat it, you know, with the motor turned off, you can just like push it back, push it towards the, in here, because that's where there's some open space and you might get it to pop back on. Sometimes you get away with it. Okay. This is not the saw we used before. This clearly needs to be cleaned out. So I'll just demo that again. Okay, that's probably okay. All right, so if the chain has been thrown, then when you get the cover off, it's just going to be hanging in there some kind of way. So I'll take this off. And let's pretend this was the chain that got thrown, which it actually did. So see, I went through and I found the chewed up drivers already, and I marked them with my little twist tie so when I got home I could fix it, but I never got around to it. So there's a couple more. I'm just gonna okay, I'm gonna hold off on the rest. All right, so
He's gonna be the guy that's out here Thursday.
so let's say
Come check it out.
I think I'm done, but I'm not sure.
Just got
So here's how I'm going to test it before I put it all the way on and put the cover back on and everything. I'm going to just put the chain back onto the bar and see if it all sits in there okay.
We started it process 8 months ago. It took so long that we've run out of money in the grant.
Okay,
We're not gonna be
so that all seems okay.
able to see what she just got.
But over here, okay, look, down here seems okay.
Who works for her, who just
That's okay.
a bunch of new wanted her to
But this one here does not want to go in.
actually have money to pay her to reformat everything or not. If she runs out of time doing that, that could be another like
Yeah.
remote holiday.
So there's a spot that I need to go back and fix. I'm just going to keep checking.
Curious myself what the new Sequel thing is.
This one's sticky. So you see I've got a few places there where it's still not ready to go in. So I'm going to have to go through, I'm going to have to, okay, I'm going to grab it by there because that's one that needs it. And And I'm going to grind this one off, and then I'm going to go through and I'm just going to keep feeling. I'm going to keep doing it until I get them all right. So that's the best way to test that you've really got them all fixed, is just put it back on the bar before you hook it back up. Okay. But I'm not going to do that right now because it'll take a while, because there's a bunch of them. So I'll just go back to the good chain and demonstrate the whole putting the chain back on. So with this saw, I mentioned this before, see, with this saw the tensioning peg is on the cover. Some saws the tensioning peg is in there. If it's in there, you have to set the bar with the peg coming through one of these holes. In this case, I don't have to do that. I have to match them up when I put the cover on. When I put the chain back on, the classic mistake to make is to put it on backwards. And then you're wondering why it's not, I just sharpened it, why is it not cutting? Well, it's running the wrong way. So you just have to remember that the teeth are facing forward on the top. And if you think about how you sharpened it, that's what they looked like when they were there. In other words, they're facing backward on the bottom, which is where it meets the wood, and that's how you want it to be. So to put the chain back on, I have to go around the drive sprocket first. Then I can slide the bar in and get the chain in the bar, and then pull it tight. So this can be feel a little awkward, especially if you don't have a tailgate, you're out in the woods and you're doing this on uneven ground. You have to set it so that the bar doesn't fall off while you're trying to put the cover on. So here's the peg. I'm going to line the peg up inside there. You're making me do this left-handed, it's harder. So the chain was tight when I took it off, so it's not surprising that I'd have to loosen it up a little bit to get the cover back on. But you have to do that part carefully. If the bar slips off the bolts while you're putting it on, you're not going to be able to get the cover on straight. So then you have to take it off and just start over. Okay, once the bolts, okay, I really do need to twist. You ready for that? I'm going to go this way. Okay, so once the bolts are basically on, finger tight. Okay, now I know it's on there enough that the bar is not going to slip off the bolts, so I can just focus on adjusting the tension. So again, I've got this, cool, I made a little mistake here that's worth pointing out. If you want to zoom in on that, the bottom part of the chain slipped out of the bar, so it's not quite on properly. Since it's so slack, like I was saying before, you can just scoot it a little bit and help it follow the track. Now it's okay. Okay, so like I was saying before with tightening, I want to push the nose up. I'm going to hold this while I set the tension. You see the chain going up into the groove there. Now it's all the way in, and now it's a little bit tight. I'm going to feel that. That feels about right. So I'm just going to tighten the bar nuts right to where I don't know how to describe this, but I'm to the point where if I make them any tighter, I'm going to not be able to adjust the tension anymore. Okay, that feels about right. So I still have the nose up, I'm still holding it up, and now I'm going to crank the bar nuts down all the way. It's kind of like the lug nuts on a car when you're changing a tire. You want to go back and forth. That one's feeling a little stripped out. Okay. It feels a little tight. I'm going to try it one time though. Yeah, that's good.
Feel for when you turn it on after you tighten it. If it slams to a stop.
Yeah, yeah. And this is, if you want to feel this, I wouldn't want it any tighter than this. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's a little quick to stop. Not bad. It winds down a little bit. Yeah. And yeah. That's how that works.